All right, time to unset. How you doing today? How you feeling? That's enough small talk. Let's get after it. Welcome to the Mind Unset and our once-a-month segment called Strong Coffee, Strong Women, where I get to share a cup of fantastic Java with some badass women. Oh, what can I say about today's show? I was more nervous about this episode than any of the previous 11. My guest today created her company from the ground up and is one of the most fascinating, multi-talented people I've ever met. She's a content creator, online business strategist, and a complete tech nerd who can pretty much master every piece of software she needs to get a job done. She's helped so many women launch their online businesses and tends to shy away from the spotlight, so I'm thrilled she agreed to do this. Welcome to Strong Coffee, Strong Women, my wife, Melody DiCroce.
That's what you get for inviting me on the show. La, la, la.
All right. Good morning.
Good morning.
How you doing?
I'm good.
I'm really nervous.
I'm nervous too. Why? We're so weird. So start all over.
This is... we tried this before.
1, 2, 3, go.
Yeah, we tried that too. Yeah.
Okay. How are you?
She's got the giggles.
Don't get me started. You know where this is going.
I do. I know exactly where we're going.
Oh, I'm going to start crying.
40 minutes of Melody laughing.
Oh. Okay.
You ready?
Yes.
All right. How you doing?
So. I'm good. I'm nervous. And now I can't stop laughing. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3.
All right. Hi. Thanks. Welcome to Strong Coffee, Strong Women.
Hi. Good morning.
Thanks for doing this.
Thank you. I don't know why I'm nerve-sighted.
Nerve-sighted?
Nerve-sighted. That's what my 8-year-old nephew says. He's nervous, but he's excited.
Interesting. That's actually
it's like
quite
a good
brilliant.
kind of. It's like a good kind of nervous.
Yeah. This is kind of weird. We don't really have discussions like this with headphones and
not with headphones and microphones, but and yeah.
What a great way to close the season with the last episode of Strong Coffee, Strong Women. How's your coffee?
It's good.
I committed a grave error this morning, I must confess. Sometimes life gets in the way when you're doing this stuff, and I've forgotten that I had to take the car over for some maintenance, so we are drinking drip coffee.
The horror.
It is. It's pretty horrible, but it's actually a nice Oaxacan blend.
It's Blazon is the company. I think it's the Pluma blend or something.
Pluma blend from Oaxaca. It is.
It's not bad. It's coffee. It's caffeine.
It's coffee, and it's got my almond milk in it. So we're ready to rock and roll.
Woohoo!
Yeah. So I just got to ask before we get started. You're in the.
This is why I'm nerve-sighted. I don't know what you're going to ask me.
You're in the online business, space now. But when we met, you were working a gig. But this whole entrepreneur thing was not a new thing for you because your first business was selling worms in a cul-de-sac. I got to know that story.
I can't believe I've never told you that story. And how did you even hear about that story?
How old were you?
I think I was like 7 because I remember where we lived, and I think I was in like 1st or 2nd grade. Yeah, so we lived, I grew up in Arkansas, and like all the kids were having lemonade stands. How boring, And so I was like, I'm going to do something different. And there was a bait shop down the road, and there, it's Arkansas. There's a lot of hunters, fishermen, things like that. And so I said, I am going to compete with the bait shop because I see a lot of business goes there, and I'm going to make some serious money. I'm going to sell worms.
Cool.
So I built a little stand, had my little table. I got up that morning, went and dug worms like that morning, and then I put a sign up, and I literally think the sign said, "Worms cheap, 25 cents."
Nice. That's a bargain.
Yeah. Well, I didn't sell any. That was my first business failure. They say if you're going to fail fast, right?
I was just going to say it, fail fast.
So that lasted one day. But you learn, you adapt, you change. And so I took the lessons and I was like, okay, so maybe this whole lemonade stand, Kool-Aid stand thing, maybe that's a thing for a reason because it actually works. But what I did was they were building like a townhouse on our street. And so I was like, you know what? It's August. It's hot. I bet these construction workers could use some Kool-Aid. So I made some tropical punch Kool-Aid, went down there with my cute little 7-year-old self, and I banked.
Nice.
Yeah. Camped right outside the construction site. That was a brilliant move on my part.
Excellent. Excellent. So that's not a surprise. So for those who may not know a little bit about our story, go ahead, drink your coffee. It's part of the show. It's like
I'm gonna take a sip, so you might hear my little
all the mouth sounds. We do. That's why we edit it out. For those that don't know, you want to give a little backstory on what we've done for the last 10 years, just to quick catch up, like Reader's Digest.
I feel like we've lived a lifetime in the last 10 years. So yeah, the Reader's Digest version. Well, first we got to go back a little bit further than that. So in 2006 is when we met, and here's this handsome Italian guy. And on our first date, I remember you telling me that you were restoring an old sailboat and you wanted to sail around the world. And I was like, that's hot, like that's different. Never heard that before growing up in Arkansas. And at the time we were living in Nashville, by the way. So I was like, okay, digging it. And obviously we started dating. You introduced me to sailing. And so we kind of carried that dream together, and we never did sail around the world, but we did sell everything that we owned in 2012, sold our house in Nashville, moved onto a boat, sailed for 8 years?
Yeah, it was supposed to be a 1 year. We were. The initial plan was we were just going to do it for a year because we didn't know where we wanted to move. Well, we wanted to leave Nashville.
Well, it wasn't. We talked about this before though, and I was like, I don't want to just like live on a boat and a dock. You know what I mean? Like we're going to go sailing, so it was not. But we also knew that taking this big leap, which was what we were doing. Like sometimes things don't work out. You know what I mean? We didn't know for sure that we would like it. We didn't know. I was still reticent because I had a job. I was like, what are we going to do for money? Things like that. And so we said, we'll give it a year experiment. And mostly that was because of me, because I wasn't sure that I really wanted to do it. And we tried it for a year. Actually, we didn't even, like a year went by very, very quickly. And then I think it was like the 2-year mark. You were like, so we never really did like reassess or reevaluate, And I was like, you're never getting me off this boat.
Right. Yeah,
I fell in love with the whole living on a sailboat. It was an amazing life. We did so much traveling. So yeah, we sailed for 8 years. We, like sailed down, cruised the whole Western Caribbean, and with our dog, which was pretty crazy.
That was crazy. That was a little nuts because, well, I mean, I'm super proud of what we did, and I should have clarified. Yeah, the 1 year thing was we would reassess at the end of the year to see how we both felt about it, because it's a grand scheme to do, and our first year was a disaster. So we didn't really assess until the end of year 2, and then it ended up turning into almost a decade. We just sold the boat in post-COVID in 2000.
It was last year.
Last year.
To 2021, September.
Was it hard for you to get off the boat? Did you feel like you were losing your identity? Like, because we've talked about that a lot.
We have. And that was the thing. It was like, we knew it was the right decision. We'd done it for 8 years. We needed to kind of plug in. We missed family. There was a lot. People think, oh, you're just living the life of Riley and all this travel. It was wonderful. I would not take a single moment back. However, we also missed out on a lot of things. And sometimes that came at the, opportunities. It was like, I mean, we were down in Guatemala, and it's like we were trying to figure out what we were going to do to replace like to put some money back into savings and stuff, because when you're traveling like that, you can't always work full time, you're freelancing. And people don't want to hire you because they just have this vision that you're like not working on the beach or on the boat, and how are we going to reach you, So it was like, okay, like we kind of think about like the future, the next 20 years, what that's going to look like. And we decided that it meant we needed to kind of integrate, go back to some normalcy, not travel quite so much. And that felt right, but it was so heartbreaking. Like, I remember sitting on the steps at your mom's when we told her that we were going to do it. And I don't even know if you remember this, but I was like just crying, not because, I felt good about the decision. I knew 100% it was the right decision. But at the same time, it was like, yeah, there's an identity tied to what you're doing. And I was like, the sailing girl, it was always whenever we'd meet new people, it was like a great topic of conversation. It was fun. It was adventurous. It was so many things. And yeah, I felt like I lost a huge part of myself when we stepped off the boat.
Yeah. There's an edge. There's an edge to living on a boat. It's not easy. But that's what made it attractive, because everything is so easy today. I really felt like I was alive. Like even when it was hard and it was hot and it was raining and we had the dog, and you had to get off the boat twice a day at least to take Jet ashore and go. Everything was high impact, but we were outside all the time. The doors and the windows were open. We weren't insulated like.
Well, there are very few opportunities, I think, in like normal Western culture life where you're so immersed in nature, in the elements. And not only that, because I think that was a huge gift. I also think like that, 10 years that we were on the boat gave me so much confidence in myself, because you realize what you're actually capable of, because it's not so easy. And so even though, in the moment, it's like, oh my God, like I would just wish that things could be easy sometimes. But in hindsight, I'm glad they weren't, because we learned so much, about not only ourselves, but how we work together as a team. It's like when you're out on the ocean 100 miles offshore and something breaks, you can't just go to the boat part store.
No, you can't pull over.
No, you can't pull over and flag somebody down for help and use your cell phone and call a tow. You just can't do that. And so you have to be self-sufficient. You have to rely on yourself, each other. And so from a personal growth standpoint, that was the most amazing thing that we ever could have done. And I will always miss that time of our lives. But at the same time, transitioning into, like this new way of life, we're still traveling. Like we're in Baja, Mexico right now, which is freaking amazing. We're in a little apartment. We didn't we didn't do a complete 180 and get some, big place, or we're still kind of like living very simply, but it is a lot more convenient. It's so funny because a lot of people are like, oh, we're in the desert. We're in a tiny little town where you don't have access to a lot of things. Like there's not a Costco here. There's not a Walmart here. And so some people think that's a drag. I think it's awesome, because it's still, I feel like we're still kind of living the simple life, even though it's still a life that a lot of people would dream about.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that carries over to, I'll just interject my opinion here, but the one thing that carries over from the boat to our current little one-bedroom apartment here in Baja is we're still immersed in the community. Like when we were in the Rio Dulce in Guatemala, the jungle of Guatemala, we had to go local markets every day, chickens, eggs, fruits, vegetables. There was no, and so that is what we still do.
Mm-hmm.
We still...
You're talking to the farm, like we're going to the farm and getting our produce, and we know his name, you know what I mean? It's like, and we don't do that all the time, and we do have grocery stores and stuff that we go to, but it's so nice to like connect and see where things are coming from and see the hard work that goes into it and the love that goes into it, so.
And practice Spanish and talk and integrate with the culture, and it's not
get yourself out of your comfort zone, because it's still, like our Spanish isn't great. Yours is way better than mine, but it's still a chance to challenge yourself personally on a daily basis so that you can grow as a person and, get better and learn about a different culture or a different way of life, or, it's pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm. And so on that thread, just to continue on that, with the amount of transients we've had over the last 10 years and the traveling and the moving. I mean, because we went from boat to car to apartment to boat. Like we've been basically living out of the Honda, the Adventure Pod and the boat was always a solace for us because it was there. It was always there. It was our house.
It was always home.
We don't have a regular house. So the boat was always home. So
no matter where the boat was, we always said, it was like, there's no place like home wherever it happens to be at the moment, you know?
Yeah. And it's like, for me, the big thing about the way we lived for 10 years was the big epiphany for me was that home became a state of mind. I say that when I do my talks with the you got to go to know thing. Home switched from a place to a state of mind. And wherever you were and wherever Jet was where we were home.
Yeah, that's what yeah.
But after the 10 years of living like this, do you feel like you've gotten better with handling change, or is it still... Because I remember when we left the dock, before we'd ever leave the dock on a big passage or something, you would be so anxious, as would I. We'd both be really anxious. But I always reached the point, we called it the gotta goes. Yeah. I always reached that point long before you did. But I remember once we got off the dock, you were always the first person to say, oh my God, I am so glad that we're moving. So after 10 years of transient living and all that stuff, and now that we've had the same apartment for 2 years and we've been in the same little town for almost 3 years, going on 3 years. We got here in 2019. But do you feel like you're better with change? That's a really long question, and I'll probably edit that out a lot. But I was trying to give a little background. I may not. So do you feel like you're better handling change, or is it still hard for you to make the move?
No, I absolutely think I've gotten better with change. I think just as humans, we're hardwired, like our nervous systems, it's like, it's easy to get in a comfort zone. It's like, if you know where your food's coming from and you know where your money is coming from, whatever, it's that feels good. It's a little hard feeling unstable at times, So I think from a nervous system standpoint, we're hardwired to resist change a little bit. But just like with anything else, I think it's, practice. And because we were moving around so much, then yes, it's easier. I think from the two of us, it was easier for me to kind of grow roots somewhere and feel comfortable. So that's a tough question, because yes, change is easier for me now. Yes, I also get more comfortable quickly. I think change is necessary for growth. That's a long answer to your long question.
It's not an easy answer. I mean, there are a lot of facets to that. That's kind of, I just wanted to hear your thought process through it. I wanted to hear you kind of work it out, because like we've talked about it. We talk about it in a roundabout way when we're having coffee and we talk about it. But when we would leave
the dock, that wasn't a fear of change. That was a fear of the unknown. From a safety standpoint, like, me, that was the one thing I never got over, the fear completely of docking or undocking. I had a nightmare last night about pulling off a dock and 5 knots of current.
It's harrowing.
It is harrowing.
It's still harrowing.
And because we had to be self-reliant, like, you also had to make sure that you were safe. And sometimes the situations we were in weren't always safe, or they were a little scary, or whatever. And so I think that was more the resistance to pulling off the dock than it was just changing, because I always loved going to a new place. But once we did it and I'm like, okay, we got off and we're safe and we're okay, my nervous system could relax. And then it's like, oh, why was I so nervous about that? But I think that comes with anything. I mean, it's like we always, you start a new business, you move to a new town, you go to a party where you don't know anybody. Like, the unknown is always a little bit scary sometimes. But
yeah. But I think if you're not scaring the hell out of you, sometimes scaring the hell out of yourself, sometimes your ideas aren't big enough.
Right. I think I fully agree with that.
How did you end up working in the online business space?
So, yeah, well, it was kind of forced because we had moved onto the boat. I was working remotely for the company that I had been working for in Nashville for a very long time. But I was kind of, learning about blogging. We had a travel blog. I was learning about things online. And so naturally I was following other online business owners, things like that, bloggers, whatnot. And through a podcast, actually Pat Flynn's podcast, I heard this guy, Ramit Sethi, who was talking about financial advice for like millennials or younger people. He was like the new Dave Ramsey, but in a more approachable, relatable way for somebody like, our age. We're not millennials anymore, but at the time, it was relatable. And I was like, wow, I really like what this guy says. Started following his blog, got on his email list, and he put out a thing one day. He was hiring. And I mean, this is, New York Times best-selling author. And none of the positions I was even remotely qualified for, but there was one for a QA specialist, which was like copy editing, but also like tech QA, things like that. And I was like, I might be able to do that. Like I don't have any experience, but I'm a really good speller. I don't know. I'm good, like good grammar, written, I'm from Arkansas, so my grammar's never going to be perfect. But, so I was like, you know what? And I remember you told me, you were like, you don't like, you got to just shoot for the fences. Right. And so I was like, okay, well, I know if I send a resume in from the hundreds, perhaps thousands of entries, that he was going to get for this job, then I'm not going to get the job. I have zero experience, so I got to do something different. I have to like stand out, be different. And so I did. And I just basically recreated his website, but I made it about me, but it was like using his colors and his branding. And I put little testimonials from like, former managers and bosses and things. And I also, as the tagline on the website, I put, I live on a sailboat. Here I was thinking, people are not going to hire me because I live on a boat. Like that's going to be the one thing that like keeps me from getting a job. And it turns out I got the job. And the reason that they hired me was because they said that stood out so much. Not only my approach to doing something like the anti-resume, but the I live on a sailboat caught everybody. They're like, who is this chick, that lives on a sailboat? And so they were like, we got to know more. And of course, I still had to qualify. I did 4 interviews to get that job. And
yeah, but the bigger point was what you thought would be keeping you from the job.
Exactly. And so sometimes, yeah, I think that as, one thing I've learned is sometimes we're so afraid because we think we don't have the right skill set or the right look for something or the right, personality for it. I'm an introvert, so I can't, be in this online business space because I see all these, people on Instagram and everything's perfect and I don't like, being on video or whatever. And so you can use those things to say you can't do something, but in actuality, sometimes there are, the funny thing is we like to think that we're unique, but we're kind of not. Like if I'm an introvert and I'm struggling with XYZ, I know there's 100,000 other women who are introverts who are also struggling with the same thing. So instead of trying to speak to everybody or put on airs or be something that you're not, why not lean into the very thing that you think is going to be your hindrance and just go with it? You know what I mean?
You say,
so promote, like, I live on a sailboat.
Right.
And you know what? I can do this job. I can still do this job.
Right.
And
you said, I love the way you said it. You said, and I wrote it down, you said you make what you think is your weakness and it ends up becoming your superpower. Mm-hmm. So I love that. And I think that's a great time to talk about. I know you're an introvert. The misnomer of introverts, like you said before, a lot of people misunderstand that introverts aren't just people that are like, don't like people. They're just people that recharge by being by themselves.
Yeah.
So as an introvert in the online space where there is a lot of pressure on the Instagram perfection and all of this perfectionism and look, I never have a bad day. How do you manage your energy and recharge while being in that space? Is it a problem for you or is it?
I've definitely created ways, and I think there's a duality there, because I think there's like being an introvert and also being I like to say recovering perfectionist, because I'm not there yet, but the perfectionism thing is a whole different conversation sometimes than the introvert thing. But when you mesh the two of them together, it can really be a big mind fuck, actually.
And burnout. It comes down to burnout.
Well, yeah, because it's like, because you're trying to, for me, it was like when I first got started in this space. And so, it was like I was working for Ramit, like I said. And so now I am a launch strategist for online business owners. And how I made that transition was, Ramit, he was like launching online courses, things like that. I ended up being on his launch team in addition to the editorial team. And I learned how to do these like $1 million online course launches, right? Then I took that, of course, wasn't working with him anymore, because that was when we took off and sailed down to Cuba and Guatemala, and I was not going to have the connection. I couldn't do that. And so it was like, but that was like a dream job, and I learned so much from that. And I just honed those skills, and I used them with other clients, like on a freelance basis. And so now I am helping women course creators launch their online courses, and I've kind of leaned into helping. Most of my audience tends to be on the introverted side, and maybe it's because I am an introvert and so they can relate to me. All that to say, so when you have the introvert and the perfectionist, when I first started out, I saw all these people that were doing it so well. And of course, you always want to admire people and learn skills and learn from other people that are kind of already doing, or, where you want to go. But there's a lot of pressure, especially in the online business space, to play a part, I guess you could say. And for a long time, I was struggling to play that part. Like, I was trying to be the expert and always look perfect, or, whatever. And that wasn't always possible. And I think that was actually why it took me so long to really get where I am today in business, where, okay, now I know what I'm talking about. Now I know what I'm confident about. And it's okay that I'm weird and quirky and I don't like being on video. And people say, you got to be on video if you want to sell, la, la, la. No, you don't. Like, it's just like with when you go to the gym, if you have a bad knee or something, then your coach is going to say, okay, well, let's do this instead. There's always a workaround. So you don't have to do things like people tell you have to do them. And, on top of the introvert perfectionism, I was always a people pleaser too. And so, but now I'm kind of learning I'm a little bit of a rebel in some ways, not always, but I'm like, okay, like this feels good. And I think that comes with confidence, with doing something. Sometimes you got to just make the mistakes and do it wrong to figure out, oh, it's not working, because I wasn't being me. I wasn't being weird. I wasn't, so I kind of leaned into the whole boat girl thing. That was part of my identity, because people were always like, oh my God, you live on a boat? What? When I would meet people at conferences or events or new clients, and so that was always a fun way to kind of get the conversation going. And then I was like, yeah, I should totally like lean into that. That's why it was a little bit hard too, going back to the identity thing, is because that was a huge part of my identity for years. Now I'm just, I'm no longer the boat girl, but, I don't have to be that anymore either.
Yeah. I think along with all of the stuff you gained by working on 7-figure launches, which are not high pressure. I mean, that anything 7-figure is going to be high pressure. But what you've learned, and then coupling that to your identity, where you really don't give a shit about playing the game anymore. It's kind of like you're your authentic self, even though that word that's so overused.
So overused. I hate the
look,
authenticity.
I hate it, but it's true.
It is true.
It really is true. It's just the fact that people have beaten the tar out of it doesn't mean that it's any less true. But in finding that, and now you're able to give permission to other people to say, look, you don't have to do it this way. Mm-hmm. That kind of honesty breeds trust. And that's why your clients are coming to you. But how hard do you find it these days because working for yourself and constantly, being a one-man band as I am with this show, how does that affect your life, work-life balance, and how?
Work-life balance? What's that?
What's that exactly? She says.
It's like there's the thing, like I'll work 80 hours a week as an entrepreneur to avoid working 40 hours a week for somebody else.
Exactly.
It's kind of that. Yeah. I think the key is, and this goes back to the question that I failed to really answer thoroughly earlier about burnout. It's easy when you love what you do, it's easy to want to do it all the time, especially when you have big, like these big hairy goals that you want to achieve. I think there's a danger in letting yourself get to the point where you're working that much. And I know, and there's so many people that struggle with this. I love what I do. I think it's very interesting. I have big goals. I know that I have to work really hard to achieve those goals. What I'm learning now is that in order to have more balance, because one of the only regrets, and I don't really usually like to talk about regrets because I don't really believe in regrets, because usually the things that we do regret are really just lessons that we've learned. And in hindsight, you're like, oh, okay, I would have done that differently. But one of the things that I regret when we were traveling so much is that because I was working so much, I missed out on seeing a lot of what was around me. It put a heavier load on you in some ways, because I couldn't help with like some of the sailing or the whatever because I was working. So now I'm trying to be more conscious. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm getting better because we're always a work in progress. But what I'm learning now is that anytime you want to do something in life, like we really only have two currencies in life, time and money. And no matter what you want to do, whether it's building a business, learning a new skill, solving a problem, then you're going to pay with one of those things. When you pay with time, you can save money. So you're going on YouTube, you're learning how to DIY your garbage disposals, fixing whatever. Or you can spend money, which is going to save you time. So you can invest in the right tools, you can invest in the right education, something that's going to help you get where you want to go faster or solve your problem faster. Neither one of those is wrong, but the key to remember is only one of those you can get back. And so I can't get back time. I can make more money. I can't make more time. So what I'm trying to do now is say, okay, is there something that I can invest in, whether it's a tool, a piece of software, something I can outsource to somebody else that's going to give me more time so that I can have more work-life balance. So I can get to my goals faster, so I can spend more time with you and enjoying this beautiful place that we're in. So I think that's really important, just spending your currency wisely. Something to be said, and I'm not saying like, oh, just go out and like spend a bunch of money on whatever. I mean, that's when you're struggling with like, that work-life balance, I think that's an important thing to keep in mind is like, where's my time best spent and how can I save the time, even if there's a little bit of investment, which is why like my signature product now is called the Launch Library. It's a set of templates for entrepreneurs who are launching online products. And that was the thing, because people hated launching. Like I was working with clients one-on-one, managing their launches, and every single one of them was like, oh my God, I hate this. This is so exhausting. I'm burning out. I don't want to launch. And so they were keeping themselves from selling the very products that were making them money because they hated launching. And so I started digging into that. Why do you hate launching? It's exhausting. How is it exhausting? Because it takes too much time. Bingo. Right. And so I created templates from all this time I'd been working with like clients one-on-one, and created templates for like copy, ads, project management templates, things like that. And these are things that, okay, you're not working from a blank slate anymore. When you go down to write your sales emails, there's templates there and you kind of fill in the blanks. It gives you a structure so you're not having to start from zero. And so people now are like, oh my gosh, this saved me 60 hours of time on my launch that I could actually focus on like taking care of myself.
And doing what they do best.
And doing what you do best. Stay in your zone of genius.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's brilliant because you spent all of this time working with the biggest names in the business. I mean, doing their launches with them. And then you found the pain points. Mm-hmm. So now, and it was a pain point for yourself. I've watched you do it. And you've created, again, you took what you thought was a hindrance and turned it into a superpower. So you took what was a roadblock and now turned it into a building block. Mm-hmm. Before I let you go, I kind of have to just like veer off here a bit. And it's hard to go into this question without setting it up a little bit because you're dog sitting and you're not here at the house. We're at another friend's house. And I know before this episode, there was probably some pregame for you. Did that include any hip hop? Did that include any?
Whatever do you mean? Of course it did. Yeah, that's my...
Can we talk about the little fascination you have, the Arkansas girl with who can quote some of Tupac's
It's just
nastiest.
My hidden talent, it's one of those things. Maybe I'll...
Is that something, a superpower you don't want to reveal to people? Is that like you want to keep...
Like,
you don't want to come out of the phone booth? No? It's just like your cape that you don't want to tell anyone? Am I revealing something behind the curtain?
No, I have this knack for... Well, first of all, I love hip hop and rap. And always have, have ever since I was in the, 7th grade or something. But I can remember every lyric to some of these like iconic rap songs from like long time ago. And yeah, so that's how I hype myself up.
What was the flavor this morning? Was it still Posse's on Broadway? Or was it?
It was a little more.
Was it?
Old Sir Mix-a-Lot.
Oh my God.
Posse's on Broadway, maybe a little Ludacris, and then some Beyonce thrown in, because you got to do some Bay.
Okay, so we touched on your launch library thing. Is there anything you're currently working on or launching or setting out there that you're really excited about you want to talk about before we...
Well, I'm really excited because in just a little over a week from the time of this release, then we are going to be going on a big road trip back to the States for a little bit. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be I have a little side project where I make these nautical bracelets. It's super fun. I'm going to be at the Annapolis Boat Show. So if anybody's listening from the sailing world, any of our sailing friends, come see me at the boat show.
Right behind the Pusser's Rum tent. It's a really great excuse to drink a $17 Pusser's Rum in the sun.
And hanging out with my friend Cheryl. We share a booth together. She does fine jewelry design. So that's always fun. That's kind of like that work-life balance. Like this is a release for me. It's a way to just kind of unplug and have fun. And
it keeps us tethered to that sailing world. We see all of our friends from that world.
Oh, yeah, because everybody comes to that boat show. And then, so also next month, I'm going to be doing a bigger launch of the launch library. And so if anybody is interested if you're an online business owner or entrepreneur or are thinking about starting an online business, go head over to thelaunchlibrary.com. That's my website, and you can see all about it. Drop me a line, say hi. You can also follow me on Instagram. I do goofy Reels videos there. That was like my foray into like getting out of my video fear. Was like, okay, like these little Reels on Instagram. They're short, they're fun. You can lip sync, so it kind of gives you a lead in. It's like having a template kind of to get started, So I kind of show my quirky, weird self over there. Maybe I'll do a little rapping sometime.
Yeah, and that's at the Launch Library Instagram
at the Launch Library. Yeah.
Right on. I think now, look, the gauntlet's been thrown. There has to be a hip hop reel. I'm going to throw it. So this is the last Strong Coffee of the Strong Women for the season 1. 13 weeks ago, we started this.
Amazing.
13 weeks ago.
Oh my gosh.
So
fun.
Yeah.
And I've really oh my gosh, I've just loved seeing the behind the scenes. I'm a really good cheerleader too. So I've loved cheering you on and seeing how your mind works because we work so well together. It's been really hard for me to kind of step back and not give my input. But when I do a good job of that, I love seeing the way your brain works and your creativeness. I love this whole Strong Coffee, Strong Women segment. I'm all about supporting and uplifting women.
Absolutely.
So thank you for doing that.
No, it's been really fun to get into a different space with people, and I think it's needed these days with a dialogue, back and forth. But
the more we understand about each other and struggles and whatever. Anyway, you're putting joy out into the world, though. I think.
Yeah,
that's
I'm trying, but we'll see that the jury's out on that. But I've said it numerous times, but the Mind Unset would not be here without you and your feedback, and you are my sounding board, and you did the beautiful website that everyone loves, and just being my buddy for 16 years. I mean, my goodness, what a
ride.
What a ride. And I love that, we did cram several lifetimes into that 10 years on the boat. So I appreciate you doing the Strong Coffee, Strong Women segment. It was really fun. And
thanks, babe.
Thank you, babe.
Love you.
Love you too. Hey, thanks for listening. We're closing in on the end of season 1. If you've been here the whole time, I appreciate you taking the ride as I figured it all out. I want to thank all of you guys who rated us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. That's huge. And a special thanks to those who took the time to leave a review. Shout out to SS Magpie Cheryl. The Dude Abides. That's a killer handle, by the way. Fixin' Jets, Spoke Turner, JJ Paintings. You guys rock. Thank you so much. Reviews totally help a small show like this one. Next week, I am flying solo for episode 13. And then the last episode will also be a solo wrap-up of season 1. Season 2 begins November 2nd, but don't worry, I'll be posting some tidbits in between. And if you haven't already, hop over to themindunset.com and get on the email list for updates and episode drop news. Follow us on Instagram at The Mind Unset Podcast. And as always, until next week, be nice, do good stuff.